That was the biggest bunch of shit. Welcome back, good folks at home. It's
Fuck
no, I got nothing.
Maybe,
fucking nothing.
Maybe.
Fuck.
Thank you, good one to take over.
I've literally forgotten
Just
what to
do it
do.
live.
Well, the guy that's greeting you on the computer screen, you ask, well, it's Greg Blake back on deck with the locker room after a short hiatus. We do apologise. We know you've missed us, but welcome back. Get off the porn for half an hour and join us for some reminiscing and talking about soccer the way we know it and the way we used to know it. We've got a terrific guest. Look, if you're a Heidelberg United Alexander supporter, we're welcome back. I've got to say, hello, Dougie.
Good to see you, Mr.
How are you,
Blake?
brother?
How are you,
Dougie's here, of course. And of course, JFOT, John Fodinos is with us as
See you,
well.
Johnny.
So it's good to be back, gentlemen, but it's great to be back. If you ever want to plot the downfall of Heidelberg United Alexander Soccer Club from its glory days through into the mid-80s, I would reckon this is the man wholly and solely responsible for the demise of this once proud club. Scott Patterson, SP, welcome to the locker room.
Thank you, Greg.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
It must be said, quite sincerely, and I'm no judge, as you can see, but you are clearly the best dressed guest that we've ever had on the program. Scotty, what's your journey been since you left the game? I mean, you're looking terrific for an old bloke.
Yes, well, I turned 50 last year. But I suppose the answer to that question quickly is that in 1988, when I missed out on going to the Seoul Olympics with the Socceroos, I basically decided to get a work career going. So I've been in the corporate world since then. And that's been my focus, and it's been good to me.
Can we plug anyone though, Scotty? Give someone a plug there, mate.
Look, I've been in the pharmaceutical world for quite a long time, and Sanofi Aventis is a company that I worked for, but Symbion is the company in Australia, and they were good to me over many years, so yeah, it's been all good.
Plug.
He's done well for himself, the boy. Now, speaking of plugs, we've got to mention too, Billy Pargus, the great man Billy Pargus, who is now taken to wearing plastic bags as a fashion accoutrement. Prime plastic bags, of course, Boost Juice. Dougie, where are they?
In Doncaster and Bayside and Frankston. Come and see me. I'll be there.
My daughter has developed an addiction to the Boost products. Copacabana nightclub, of course. Reba! And our big three, JFOT, and they are
Northcote City, who are the high-flying leaders of the Victorian Premier League, which may well be defunct next year.
Could be NPL of it. NPL, we'll discuss
talk
that.
about that later, yeah. And of course, we've got Sydney Olympic for our northern friends up in Sydney, and of course the Heidelberg United Football Club.
And we've got some big stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks on the locker room. We're out on the road next week. We'll be broadcasting live from one of my favourite venues when I used to, follow and whatever the hell I did in those days.
Very professional and doing it all in the well, mate, we couldn't vouch for that, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
He wasn't bad in his day.
He was good.
He was
He was
good.
good.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. But we'll be out at Summer Street at the home of the once mighty Melbourne Knights next week, broadcasting live. So that'll be fantastic. Looking forward to that. Lots of things to discuss, but before we do that, let's pay some respect to our guest, despite the fact that he destroyed this club in 1986. But you did mention it's been 30 years now since you first came to Heidelberg in 1983. What are your recollections, Scotty?
Oh, look, just an absolute honour to join the club, to be honest, because it was one of the biggest clubs in Australia, clearly. And a teammate of mine from Box Hill, Mickey Valentine, had joined 6 months earlier, and he told me how good it was, the crowds, and just it was a very talented squad of players. And there was actually only probably a few young guys back then. Mickey Patterson was another one. So as one of the younger ones, we did feel quite honoured to be part of that squad, which was full of Socceroos, to be honest. And it wasn't easy getting the game, to be honest, in the first year. It took me a while to get my way in, but had 3 years here, Greg, and really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't have actually left, by the way, if it wasn't for Brian Garvey. There's my answer to that. Brian Garvey,
last seen juggling in the Rundle Mall in Adelaide. True story.
I have to admit though, there's some great names on your page. I've Googled, figured out how to turn the computer on. They're all Australians. They're Australian players, and you were at the top. Now, we talked briefly before, obviously, representing the country. Obviously, it was an honour for all players that would be to represent the country. How close and how far did you go?
Oh, well, look, I was selected in '87 when I was at Brunswick Juventus, and I was in there for about 18 months. And
Who was the captain then?
It was the Frank Arrock era.
Frank Arrock,
and Frank, unfortunately, seemed to be happy to draw every game rather than win. And I sort of went against all my principles, and he had about 11 or his favourite 11 and 13. Charlie Yankos was part of that team, and Jeff Olver, of course. And there was quite a number of guys who were in the squad like myself who were in there for 18 months and just didn't get a chance. So that was probably a real disappointment for me.
So who was in front of you though? What sort of people were we talking about category?
Who was in the team? The Robbie Slaters and the Graham Arnolds and Frank Freeners. So they were good players.
Let's be fair, we can take the hat off to them and say, well,
Absolutely.
they weren't bad.
You know, they're good guys as well.
They held their
absolutely.
own.
There was just certain games where they probably weren't as important. I remember a few pre-Olympic qualifiers against teams like Chinese Taipei. And a lot of us felt like we could get 20 minutes and just
chance,
get a chance, but that never came. So
Perhaps you were mad dog enough for the mad dog himself.
well, yeah.
You know, that's perhaps we just weren't quite ruthless.
But who would you say, I'm just going on there though, there's some names, you know, Charlie Egan, I was a boy. Charlie Egan, he was fantastic for the game, wasn't he, around that era. But
Yeah.
who would you say has touched you? Where have you learned? Who was your most, let's go start, who was one of the most influential people to you?
I reckon when I got here it was actually Gary Cole and Jimmy Tansey that actually really helped me a lot.
Man love
testify.
Fantastic guys, and I remember my first game out here at the Living Village was against Sydney City, who were a very big team in those days, and a big guy called Steve O'Connor who played for Australia. He was about 6'4" and had more tattoos than Dane Swan, and he actually belted the living crap out of me that day. And
that was back in the days you could actually get away.
You could actually get away with it, and you know, I actually said after the game I was black and blue and felt a bit sorry for myself. And Jimmy Tansey said, "Listen, just get used to it, or you'll be back at Box Hill before you know it." And that was part of him taking me under his wing. And, he gave me a lot of good advice, and I learned how to use my body back then.
Your body. And what about coaches? See, I've done a little bit of research. Terry Hennessy.
Yes.
He was involved back in them days coaching.
Yeah, Terry was actually at Melbourne, Croatia when I arrived here. But Terry actually, obviously, I've been good friends with Terry's son Dean for a long time, and so I got to know Terry off the ground. And I mean,
did he have you at Juventus? Did he have you at Juventus?
He did. When we were in the Premier League, he did, not in the National League. But it was an honour to play for Terry because his knowledge. He's just a fantastic man manager, don't he? More than the coaching side. Just a really good man manager, and always created a good dressing room. And you know, we had a successful time with Terry there.
Who was the best coach that you worked under along the journey? I'm always intrigued because you mentioned the name before, Len McKendry, who at one stage he was at
so many people loved him. Like Stubbsy talks about him. Other people that I've got shoulders with, they love. I've never been under Len, but I've always heard.
Yeah, no, clearly
it was fantastic.
Clearly, Len's the best coach I've played for. In fact, it was interesting when I got selected for the Socceroos. Lenny said to me, "Don't worry about going. Frank Arrow can't coach. Just wait till I become the Socceroo coach, and then I'll pick you in the team." That's what he said to me. So, but
which is probably real. We're going to Frank. We'll back that up because you can't coach. You didn't play you.
No, well, yeah. Well, Frank didn't do a lot of coaching, to be honest. It was actually Eddie Thompson who was the assistant coach, and you know, unfortunately, Eddie passed away with cancer. He was a fantastic coach as well. It was an honour to play for at least be coached by him in the Socceroos.
I'll just get the knives out of my back now. And I can throw a few into Eddie Thompson now, but we won't go down there.
Players, but what was the players scene back then? You know, off the field.
Well, that was probably one of my downfalls, to be honest. It was fair to say that I liked to train hard, but I played hard as well. And Greg might have written a couple of articles about me back in those days, about eating hamburgers and drinking beer and stuff.
Because weight wasn't a factor back in them days, was it?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a name you got there, Dougie, Donnie McLeod.
Yes.
Donnie took me under his wing in a different way. And that was to introduce me to every nightclub.
Can you tell me, people that don't know SB, talk to me, explain Donnie, to people on the viewers who Sydney, Queensland, apparently we're going off in Wollongong at the moment, guys, and we're not naked, we've got our clothes on, we're okay, but talk to people that know, because Donnie McLeod, who is he, what was he about?
Donnie was the centre half here at Heidelberg when I got here.
That says it all.
And he sort of played alongside Charlie Yankos at the back, and Donnie was a fierce competitor, you know, not overly skillful, Dougie, you probably remember that, but he didn't pretend to be either, but Donnie was very active in the social world, and knew just about every nightclub owner there was in Melbourne, and
well connected, we'll say?
Yeah, well connected, and he took me under his wing a little bit, as he was about 24 and I was 20, and we probably did a bit too much of that back then, but never the night before a game, Greg, only 2 nights before a game.
That's dedication, that's all okay. Remember that, you heard that here, Honor, dedication.
Special guest on the locker room tonight, Scott Patterson, one of the great names of the glory days of the NSL, JFOT, Dougie and Greg Blake on deck.
Just got a note here that our special guest from the HUFC TV, who's been doing some reporting for us, Griffin McMaster, has come into the room, so we might get him to come in and join in here.
This is an awkward segue. Well done, Joe.
We're
Congratulations.
still rolling in the
Reaching new heights of professionalism is very much
Going
along
well.
the lines of my days at SBS television. So they can get stuffed.
Well, we're going back to this, but I want to hear more stories.
Yeah, I know, but I do have to acknowledge our sponsors, Doug, if you can just know your place. Heidelberg United, Sydney Olympic, Northcote City, of course, our club sponsors, and that's fantastic. The Copacabana nightclub, Boost Juice, and Billy Pargas at Prime Plastic Bags, whatever you need carried in a plastic bag. Bill is the man to see. He's the plastic king. We often play the game of favourite player that you play with, and etc. Favourite nightclub, SP, given that you gave them quite a bash.
Clearly the one that I was at quite regularly, like as in twice a week, was the Chevron.
Oh, secure the road, never went there, but I know where it is.
Absolutely huge in the day, and
It was too, wasn't it?
good fun in there.
Yes, I'm sure it was. I was going to ask you to relate some stories, but I don't think we will. I don't think we will now. Now, Griffith, you're with us.
I'm here.
Which is splendid. We didn't know.
Better like never.
Okay. Can you explain why you are lurking over the locker room table at this point?
Not really.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to...
What were you involved with?
I mean, I'm sure you're a lovely chap and you're
Just a
gorgeous
ring.
looking.
Just a ring.
Well, look, we'll welcome it anyway.
Griffith's been doing the post-match reviews for Heidelberg United Football Club TV for the last few
Oh,
weeks.
fantastic.
So,
Well, now that we actually
start
have
of a
some
burgeoning
context,
media career.
which is fantastic. Soccer media then, yeah?
Correct.
And that's your chosen career.
And the rumours have it he wants to hop under your wing, and you've got to take him under and show him which direction you went.
Honestly,
Worst career move.
the halcyon days of the soccer. I'll give you a name of the list of 10 people to avoid if you want to build a career in this. But welcome, and good on you for having that sort of passion.
I'm going to go back into SP. I want to know the hardest centre half you played against, mate. You were a striker. Or
Well,
would you class you as a striker or behind?
Lucky you were a bit younger than me, Dougie, and so I didn't have to play against you too much. But
I did get the run round behind you a few times, didn't we? Juventus.
remember Stevie McIntosh, I think it was, from Melbourne, Croatia. And, well, certainly, what's his name that I mentioned from Sydney City?
Yeah.
Rocky O'Connor.
Yeah.
He was tough as, no doubt about it. But who else? I think Big Peter Lewis, when I played against him. Remember Big Peter Lewis? He kicked anything that moved, and
They pushed them.
he drank anything he could drink as well, too, by the way.
It is interesting to reflect, and I want to draw you on. We do the odious comparisons between then and now, but when you think through the names, and there were some genuinely psychopathically brutal players in the competition back then.
There was.
And you watch some of the A-League stuff now, and there's, it's just such a wuss game.
You can't tackle from behind. No, I can't.
I was just thinking
My career finished.
they were genuinely disturbed men.
Yes.
There you were.
Well, one of the guys who was very much in that mould was John Dowie. Remember John Dowie
I do
from
remember
Brunswick?
John
So when
Dowie.
I played against him when I was at Heidelberg, I mean, you'd stir John up a little bit, and he had these eyes that rolled around the back of his head, and so you never knew which way he was looking, but you knew he was upset. That's one thing you knew. And he would absolutely come over the top of the ball and hit you if he could. There's no question about that.
So that was a little bit naughty. There was a physicality, there was a little bit of naughty.
That was a naughty. John JD was, as he was known. I went and joined him at Brunswick Juventus, and I saw firsthand what his tricks were there, and he got away with a lot.
Yeah.
He got away with a lot.
Some good boys there though, at McNichol, obviously a friend of Brian and I, good mates. Mill was down there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Remember Marshall Soper?
Yes,
from
I do.
Sydney? He was definitely away with the fairies. He was a good player.
Yes, he was.
Good player, but when you played against him, he just was all over the shop.
Well, I remember the Socceroos at that point when the front two were Marshall Soper and John Cosmino. And was that the most demented front duo in the history of world football?
Yeah, two good players though. We could have used
Two
the other
great
night against
players.
Japan. You know?
Absolutely.
Actually,
two great
I
players.
got played against Marshall as well and up in Sydney. They knew where to do and what not to do and
Oh,
how to
Marshall
treat your
Soper
brothers.
is terrific. I love hearing these old names. If you haven't, look, just if you love this sort of stuff, which I do, if I could bathe in it, not personally, I wouldn't bathe with you, but if I could bathe
Man,
in
love's okay.
I certainly wouldn't bathe with you. In fact, I'm not even sure. Have you actually? No, it doesn't matter. But if you're into this stuff, please go to the Locker Room Facebook page. It is just. I've immersed myself in it recently. It's starting around about 1,500 hits. It's fantastic stuff. Old photographs, old videos. and it's well worth the journey. I've teared up a couple of times, there's no doubt about that. Seeing Les Murray's face again bring tears to anybody's eyes. Bitter much?
The game, what about the game now? Let's see.
Oh, well, just quickly before we move away from there, let's do a best player you played against.
Best player against. I always had a lot of time for John Cosmina, to be honest, but I was mentioned John Eisendorn before.
Yeah.
When I played against him up front for Heidelberg against South Melbourne, he was hard to get past. Very good player. And Stevie Blair, a great combination.
What a gentleman, Steve Blair. And who's the best player you played alongside?
I reckon Mickey Patterson was very good.
What did he have?
I think just supervision, super skill, you know, the ability to hold on to the ball in tight situations and then pick a pass. But, you know, for Charlie Yankos was a great player in my view, a great defender, probably a bit maligned. Charlie hit a lot of long balls that people say, oh, well, all Charlie does is kick them off the ground. But I tell you what, you could not get past him. He was physically strong and mentally very strong. That's the thing that probably people underestimated with Charlie, how mentally strong he was. He got the absolute best out of himself. And the other bloke that did that was Paul Wade. I played with Paul Wade at Juventus, and you know, nothing but admiration for Wadey. I mean, with all he's had brain operations and all sorts.
Ran through the ringer,
and he had that all through his playing days. So you know, they're some of the great players I think I played.
And you're allowed to have one moment back, Scott Patterson. And we do this with all our guests. You're allowed to have one moment in your career that you could have, if you could relive it again tomorrow.
And not in a nightclub.
And not in a nightclub.
Not in a nightclub. And not down any lanes. Not in a nightclub. We've got to keep it simple to football.
Playing career.
Yeah, look, I actually do regret leaving Heidelberg, all jokes aside. I think I mentioned before, Brian, it was pre-season 85, my last year was 85, so I only had 3 seasons here, but pre-season 85 my brother got married, I went to his wedding and I missed the semi-final of the pre-season cup, and Brian decided to make an example of me and say that wasn't committed enough, and left me out of the National League for 8 weeks, which really was very annoying because I was starting to, I think, emerge as a player then, and yeah, we just fell apart during that season, and in the end, one night out here at training, he asked me if I didn't like his training, and I said, that's correct, I don't like your training, and I walked in, had a shower, and that was kind of the end of it. And but I really enjoyed my time here. I would have stayed here if it wasn't for Brian.
And it was probably symbolic at the time, because losing you to Juventus at the time. I remember, I can't remember all the names, but I know there were 6 or 7 players, of almost an exodus of players toward the end of that year, which probably... again, but look, I'm not exonerating you from blame. I still feel, Scott Patterson, that it was you who brought the Empire.
You heard that live.
I wasn't that good, trust me.
Hey, Chevron reckons you were.
Now, before we get into issues of the day, John, your contribution tonight's been appalling. You've said nothing, and you're on your knees, and that probably really deserves to be. Griffith, you've said nothing, but I like you much better than John already. Scott Patterson. Scotty, let's talk present time. I certainly aired my
A-League to
A-League to now, and we, you know, and I think the thing that really irks me more than anything else is the treatment of the NSL in the modern day. It's almost as if great players and great teams, and we've just started. We're not even the tip of the iceberg. It's almost like they didn't exist. It's almost like you didn't have a career. It's almost like soccer in this country. And I'm saying soccer. Because it's a powerful word, but you're right, sweetie. Good. I don't know what the question was. Was I saying anything?
Can you see the view? What do you think now with the viewers?
Personally, I really enjoy the A-League. Right? I think
it's marketed right.
It's absolutely marketed right. The game is finally getting the profile it deserves. It is the biggest sport in the world by a long way, and it's starting to get that recognition in Australia. So I like what they've done with the A-League. Although I do understand what you're saying. I think some of the best teams of the history of the last 30 years, I would have thought, are some of those NSL teams back then. Remembering that a lot of those sides had a lot of visa players coming in from the UK, and Heidelberg was no exception. As I said, when I got here, I think you had to be very good as a young guy to get into some of those teams back then, whereas these days a lot of young guys get in. I look at a lot of them playing in the A-League, and I think should have got a game in my day, but still, they're playing on fantastic grounds. They've got a media deal now with Fox Sports and all that sort of stuff, and you know, I think the game's getting promoted better than ever. We just got to get all these kids, because there's been kids playing in huge numbers playing soccer for a long time. We've just got to transfer that into the A-League and just keep improving the standard. And I think it is improving. Yeah.
But with that, though, Scotty, the kids have got to come into it, but they've also got to have the knowledge already there to bring someone like yourself when you were playing, someone like me, younger, coming in behind, under the wing in the right manner.
Yep.
and you bleed these kids. You know, at the moment I'm seeing a lot of kids, yes, it will get better eventually, but it's patience. You know, you're seeing a lot of kids playing, like you just said, shouldn't be playing, but are playing. When, you know, you've got experienced players out there that, you know, maybe like we're talking, I'm going to bring a little issue up, we're talking about the NPL, which is next year. They're bringing a point system into the Premier League, which will be X amount of kids got to play. You might be able to only have extra amount of players over a certain age. The philosophy behind that is they're trying to push the kids through to the Australian team as quick as they can, because we've got no development. But the thing is, what they're going to don't understand is they're going to hurt the game. Because the people that are over 25, say me and you playing at 26, we've got knowledge, we've got experience, we've got a bit of blood to help these kids and bleed these kids through.
Sure.
Because that's where I did. Well, that's they all put us under the wing, and mate, what great names you played a long time.
Sure.
You know, so if the clubs, they do go in this direction, they're going to hurt the game again.
Well, all the great teams have a mixture of very experienced players,
And some bleeds.
mid-aged players, and some young kids. And if you don't get that balance right, you don't succeed.
Yeah.
Scott Patterson, our special guest on the locker room tonight here at Heidelberg United Alexander Soccer Club, one of our great sponsors of the program, along with Sydney Olympic, Northcote City, Copacabana, Boost, and Billy Pargas and Prime Plastic Bags. I know we're running short on time, so let's run through the issues of the day. JFOT, are you prepared to join us and make a valuable contribution?
I was just going to say the NPL, big news just in the last few weeks. A lot of the Premier League clubs that
How many? Come on, Johnny, give us some numbers.
I think about 8 clubs
So no or said yes?
have said they're not even going to put in the expression of
Big
interest.
clubs, what are we talking?
No, we're talking Melbourne Knights and
That's
Green
a huge-
Gully.
that's a huge
who've been
club, Green Gully.
Two of the powerhouses. Green Gully's been a perennial powerhouse
Yes.
in the competition for the last 10 or 15 years.
And
They've decided not to put in an
And they've got,
LA.
listen, without being rude, they've got financials too. They wanted the stability
Well,
of the clubs.
Melbourne
that they've
Knights
got.
as well. I mean, they own their own stadium. You know, they've obviously thought, and they've actually put their thing towards a members' vote, and the
Yes.
members actually themselves decided as a club not to
Okay,
join.
John, if this is how it's tracking, if this is going to be the trend, what are the repercussions now for that project?
Well, I think what will eventually happen is, if it does go ahead in the manner that's proposed, it'll be just a de facto B League, basically. So it'll be a whole lot of new franchises, perhaps, and I think a lot of the clubs are worried about their history just being wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Which is another subject to go on, but you can understand what they're trying to format. They're trying to format another tier.
The
But how do they
idea
do it?
behind it is fine. It's just, I
How do
think,
they basically got the concept?
how they're going to get to
And
that
the
end, you know.
And they need to work with the clubs, not just go, because I'll be honest, you hear rumours and this, I don't think the FFV know.
I'll be interested next week.
Well,
when we go
someone I read, and our esteemed producer here has actually said there's no financial model being put up by the FFV to give clubs a basis.
How do you do a business plan? How do you do a business plan?
So
You've got nothing
we don't know, as a club, you won't know.
Stay tuned, we'll be here from
Yeah.
the locker
Yeah,
room.
it'll be interesting to track this one. It'll be interesting too to sit down with the Melbourne Knights next week. We're out at
Yes.
Summer Street next week, home one of the great, another one of the great clubs of the NSL days. What else have we got on the agenda? The World Cup, of course. Fantastic story today. The Australian immigration officials at Melbourne Airport caused something of an incident. They held the Jordanian coach in immigration for 5 hours today.
You'd have been happy with that.
Oh, I think it's a fantastic.
Well, they trained this afternoon.
This is our equivalent of holding it. You know, you go overseas and you go to have all the supporters outside your hotel room all night. This is better just hijack the coach. Just keep him in immigration for 4 or 5 hours. They're pretty steamed up about it. But
Did he get through?
I think eventually. But it has created a diplomatic incident, and
Shouldn't laugh.
I just yes, you should. It's funny. It wasn't you. It wasn't one of your relatives. It just makes it funny.
It just shows football is global. You know, it transcends everything.
I'm not sure I draw the correlation, John.
Well,
But thanks.
you know, only football could create incident like that.
Have you had your medication?
Probably not.
You're watching The Locker Room on this Thursday night. John Fott and Os Griffith McMaster, who nearly spoke a little while ago, and then Doug Hodgson, surprisingly enough, talked over the top of him. Special guest Scott Patterson. Doug Hodgson, legend of the game in some quarters anyway. And what's left of Greg Blake at his ripe old age of 407. So we got anything else on the agenda, boy? Griffith, you just say something, anything, just
Go
so
on, mate.
people know.
What's the background? Come on, give me a background.
Where did you get that
buddy.
stylish
Well, I was
haircut?
going to take the JFOT tape off me. I'll
Come
be
on.
down to start
Give
off.
me a background of you, bud.
Obviously, do a bit of reporting for Heidelberg United TV on a weekly basis, which goes out on the YouTube channel and gets broadcasted on Twitter and obviously Facebook as well. Playing history, obviously, I played Brisbane Roar, played 20 games under Frank Farina and Ange Postecoglou, and I had a couple of short-term stints at Wellington Phoenix just recently last season that just went December and January, and here I am back in Melbourne and playing for State League Oakley. So I've had sort of the A League and I've had the Greeks as well. So it's been good fun.
I've got something scary
Cigar,
for you.
cigar, huh?
You can take this away. You can bank it. If you stay in the soccer media, what you're looking at now is you in 30 years. I'd be scared witless if I
I
were
would
you.
like, you know what, I know we haven't got time, and
Good.
I mean this, but I'd like to see a background show, because I would like to hear a bit of movement, how you feel towards the oldest A-League, which is National League.
Come back on the show.
Now, will
Can
you
you
back
do
on
that?
the show?
And he's significantly more attractive than John. What
Most people are.
So that is a good point.
Unless you're asking to speak to his wife.
Scott Patterson, I must just say, if I may, thank you for making the effort to come and join us. But more to the point, and as I was saying to you outside before we came on today, I do so miss the old days, and I catch up with people like yourself, and I just I want to tell you what your contribution to the game meant to a mug like me. So thank you for coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
And once again, you know, reminding of us all of how bloody great this bloody game is, and how bloody wonderful the history is. And anybody who doesn't agree with me can get stuffed as well. That's all.
Greg, how you feel? He's had his pills, he's okay.
No, well, just the young people, like, what's his name, young Griffo over here, just
That's
coming
true.
along and thinking that the league didn't exist before, man.
I have to admit, me as a kid, and I've got Gary Cole. We talk about Gaz.
Gary
Brown,
Cole.
we love Gaz. He was a big, for me, had a lot to do with my career as well. And I remember as a kid, the big blonde 15, Victoria going.
Yeah.
And, these are my memories.
Yeah,
You
fantastic.
know what I mean? And it touches you. And you'll look back when you're our age, a little bit older, and you'll have your memories too. But our era was that era, wasn't it? It was fantastic.
I like to think of it as the sexy, charismatic era. That's all I've
We're
got.
going to leave with that one, aren't we?
We are Melbourne
Doug
Knights
Shirt.
next week. Doug Shirt very quickly, but before we do Doug Shirt tonight is sponsored by Heidelberg United, City Olympic, Northcote City, the Copacabana nightclub, Boost Juice of course, and Prime plastic bags. Doug,
This one's a simple one. It's got every name that played at Sheffield United. How many years is that? 120 years. Russell Black, if you know the name, played in Australia, he's on there. Obviously Carl Beard's name's on there, and obviously good old Dougie's on there too. So it's got everyone's name on there. So I got it sent over from my in-laws, and I'm surprised they didn't burn it on the way, because they're Sheffield Wednesday supporters. So I thought I have to start looking deep into that bag, Blake. Those shirts are running out.
DHSP, Young Griffo, JFOT, Greg Blake, signing out, locker room, go back to your porn or whatever you're doing before.
Happy birthday to me mum.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I take back everything I said about him.